So my background is as a filmmaker and a musician. I've been on large stages from LA to Krakow to here in Dublin. And everything from large-scale client work to small-scale indie production. And nobody ever really knows that I'm visually impaired with roughly 10% sight. And that made me think about how vision impairment is kind of perceived by the larger community. There are a lot of examples you can point to of people who are fully blind and very successful, like Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles or Andrea Bocelli. But there also are a lot that have never really talked about their vision impairments, like John Lennon or Johnny Depp or Bono, and it was never a central point of their character. And much like them, I'd never let it stop me doing what I wanted to do either. But I wanted to look at some local examples of people who are doing the same and achieving these incredible things despite their vision impairment. When you are visually impaired, you can seem quite isolating. So how has music helped you to kind of find or form these communities in your lives and just work around your sight loss that way?
I think for me, as somebody blind, because it's audible and it's auditory, it kind of puts me on an equal, well, more of an equal footing with my sighted peers.
It really has opened up a wonderful community on a different level. You know, it's still the music, it's still conducting, it's still teaching people how to sing together and all that, but it's a completely different dynamic goes on with it, and it's wonderful. I really enjoy it.
We learn the music off by heart, so we're listening to each other constantly and listening to Frank. So we're not looking at a piece of paper and kind of focusing on that. We really are in the moment all the time, and it's a very bonding kind of experience to really be singing and listening to each other like that. So I have a retinal condition called cone rod dystrophy. Everything directly in front of me, it will be blurred. Basically all the central vision is progressively disappearing. I just started noticing when I was reading, for example, that when I would look at a word, it would disappear basically. So then I started having to look a little bit above the line or below the line to sort of see it out of the corner of my eye, so to speak. But I was also having the same sort of issues on computers, finding them very bright to look at, so a lot of eye strain and things like that. Just happened gradually over a period of a year or so before I kind of realised there was no way to really address this, and I needed to go and get some tests done. Because I can more or less get around, okay, I don't use a cane, I don't have a guide dog, people would never know. But then let's say you walk into a restaurant and you're trying to maybe order something or looking at a menu. Do I try and explain it? Do I not explain it? So it's definitely hidden challenges, but I've found over time that it is better just to say it and just let people know what's going on, because it just makes life easier for everybody. And music has obviously been a big part of my life, and whether you're rehearsing or whether you're particularly if you're performing live, there's a lot of visual cues, a lot of unspoken stuff that happens between the band members. As soon as you say to people, listen, I've got some problems in my eyes, can you do X or help with X? I mean, people always will bend over backwards to help. They have to be aware too that if they need to agree in advance, sort of, if they need to communicate something to me, it has to be a little bit more obvious than just a nod of the head or whatever. I kind of consider myself fairly lucky to have developed eye issues at a time when the assistive technologies now are amazing. I use an iPad too for if I need to look at lyrics or words or that kind of thing. I'd be lost without it.
So I suppose the next thing that Connor, you mentioned in your interview is about sight loss kind of being an invisible barrier. So how do you all feel that vision impairment kind of affects your interpersonal relationships? Even just between random passerbyers in the street or people in restaurants or cafes or whoever it might be. How do you feel like that dynamic might be affected by sight loss?
I've definitely felt over the years that worrying about if I may have walked by people and they thought I was ignoring them.
For me, it has always been lifelong that I haven't been able to make eye contact with people, because so many of the initial connections with people are through eye contact. And it is the one area that really always upset me, was that I'm a very sociable person and I'm a very friendly person. And I hated feeling that I might meet somebody on the street or even a student on the school corridor and not be able to know who they are. So I would give them a generic kind of how are you, or how's it going? Whereas I'd love to be able to say, hello Johnny, how are you? And how was this yesterday or whatever? And I couldn't do that. With light, especially sunlight, I'm basically I can't see anything, it's all just white. So I would be looking at you now and I wouldn't be able to see the features of your face, but I know you're there. The condition is called macular degeneration, and what effectively it does is it blurs your picture. It's a retinal issue, so that really past a couple of centimeters, things begin to blur until further away they're just shapes. When I was young, there was very little. You went to see the eye specialist and he said, yeah, your eyesight's is bad. He didn't offer any help. When I was in school, I never saw a note on a blackboard, and only that I had good friends in school and teachers who were reasonably sympathetic. I would get notes from the good friends that I had beside me in classroom. People were always very open to my sight condition, very helpful. I never hid it anyway. Some people do, you know, some people find it very difficult to be honest about it. I've been a pianist all my life, but mostly my life has been centred around education of others, and particularly adult education with choral training. And I train choirs even still. Even though I had to retire from the school teaching, I'm training choirs. And I suppose, you know, the greatest opportunities I've had have been to conduct a large choir and a large orchestra in a wonderful venue like the National Concert Hall, which I've done on about 5 occasions. It's amazing really that as a vision impaired person, I'm in exactly the right place to be, because everybody has to look at me. Rather than, I don't actually have to see their faces. I don't even have to see any gestures from them. They only have to see my gesture. So I'm actually in the best place.
So I know in my own experience that there's a lot of surprising benefits or kind of good things that might come from sight loss, things you wouldn't necessarily expect. So what are some of the positives that you guys have seen because of your vision impairment?
Just a few that spring to mind for me would be, well, reading Braille. Mainly reading Braille, I can read in the dark. I don't have to worry about having the lights on. Out and about with Zorro, the guide dog, he brings me to the top of every queue regardless of how long it is going for a bus. And I'm sure I must get awful looks, but I don't see the looks, so it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you?
Plus the fact that I'd imagine like when people are focusing on paper or words, the sound has been deflected downwards, whereas when you have it all in your head, you just kind of let it out and let it flow.
Absolutely, Audrey. I always felt that music was a distraction. The actual sheet music was a distraction, and I think all the best musicians learn their music off by heart. So it's them, their instrument, and the audience.
I don't see anything, so I can't tell you in terms of visuals because I don't remember. I had tumours on the optic nerve part of the brain, so obviously they had to be removed and managed. So I haven't seen since the age of 4. And this sounds very probably philosophical and very kind of strange for people who can see. I don't know what it's like kind of for darkness or black. So it's just like an emptiness, an abyss of nothingness. It's funny because I remember things that happened to me when I was going blind, but I don't remember seeing them. I remember them kind of happening from an experiential perspective, but not from a visual. Audio is essential. It and tactile would be the 2 main senses that I would use for moving around, for just basically communicating with people and for picking up cues from the environment. Music has always been a part of my life. I'd always sang in choirs when I was younger, junior choirs like locally. As somebody who's blind, I have to be very organised. I have to do a lot of memory work. I've learned to train my memory for storing information and then to be able to retrieve information really quickly. If there were significant parts that were kind of different or whatever, I would make notes in Braille and listen over and over again to audio files. It's really important that I listen because obviously I can't see what's happening. I know we all listen, but I think when you don't see, you have to listen really, really carefully and really in a mindful kind of a way. I suppose it's a learning curve for both me and for people I meet. It wouldn't really bother me going into a place where I didn't know people. Okay, it's a help and it's an advantage if people are friendly and inclusive. But I just enjoy the singing, so my main purpose being there is the singing and the music.
What are some of the main kind of misconceptions you find with the sighted community, the fully sighted community, and things they might mostly misunderstand, you have to kind of explain most often.
People kind of assume either you can see completely or you can't see at all. And if they've no visual cue like a guide dog or a cane, they're not going to know. I suppose in this documentary, it'd be great if a little bit more awareness about the fact that there are lots of different types of sight loss and people's experience are very different. A lot of times people don't know. So I suppose it's more, I've learned that it's up to me to actually let people know when I need it, because they're not going to have any idea that I'm struggling in a particular situation. As soon as you actually tell people, listen, I have an issue here, then yeah, people are always more than willing to help. And that's been a huge silver lining.